For more than a century, people believed the story was impossible. A massive ship, carrying hundreds of passengers and crew, sailed confidently into the cold Atlantic Ocean. Days later, it disappeared beneath the waves, leaving behind stories of courage, sacrifice, wealth, and tragedy that would echo through history. The year was 1912. The world was changing rapidly. Factories roared across Europe and America. Railroads connected distant cities. Electricity illuminated streets that had once been dark after sunset. Human beings believed they were entering an age where technology could conquer almost any challenge. Among the greatest symbols of this confidence was a ship called the RMS Titanic. Built by thousands of workers in Belfast, Ireland, the Titanic was more than a vessel. It was a statement. At over 882 feet long, it was one of the largest moving objects ever created by humans. Newspapers celebrated it. Wealthy passengers competed for tickets. Engineers praised its advanced design. Many people described it as practically unsinkable. The ship's luxurious first-class accommodations amazed visitors. Grand staircases stretched through multiple decks. Elegant dining rooms served meals that rivaled the finest hotels in the world. Wealthy businessmen, aristocrats, and celebrities prepared to cross the Atlantic in unprecedented comfort. But beneath the glamour was another reality. Hundreds of immigrants traveled in third class. Many had sold nearly everything they owned. They dreamed of reaching America and building a better future. For them, the Titanic represented hope. On April 10, 1912, the ship departed from Southampton, England. Crowds gathered to watch. As the enormous vessel slowly moved away from the dock, few could imagine that they were witnessing the beginning of one of history's most famous disasters. The Titanic stopped briefly in France and Ireland before beginning its journey across the Atlantic Ocean toward New York City. Life aboard the ship settled into a routine. First-class passengers enjoyed lavish dinners, live music, and social gatherings. Wealthy industrialists discussed business opportunities. Families strolled along the decks while enjoying fresh ocean air. Meanwhile, third-class passengers shared stories about the lives they hoped to build in America. Children played in the corridors. Parents dreamed about jobs, homes, and opportunities waiting across the ocean. The Atlantic appeared calm. Day after day, the Titanic moved westward. Yet danger existed far beyond the horizon. Wireless operators aboard ships throughout the North Atlantic transmitted warnings about icebergs. Several vessels reported large fields of floating ice directly in the Titanic's path. Some messages reached the Titanic's bridge. Others were delayed or overlooked amid the constant stream of passenger communications. The weather remained clear. The sea appeared unusually calm. Ironically, this made icebergs more difficult to detect because waves normally breaking against the ice would have provided a visual warning. On the evening of April 14th, temperatures dropped. The stars shone brightly overhead. Passengers relaxed in lounges, enjoyed conversations, or prepared for sleep. At approximately 11:40 p.m., lookouts spotted something directly ahead. An iceberg. The warning bell rang. The bridge received the alert. Officers immediately ordered evasive maneuvers. Massive engines responded. The enormous ship began turning. But physics could not be defeated. The Titanic was simply too large and moving too fast. Moments later, the iceberg scraped along the ship's starboard side. Many passengers barely noticed the impact. Some felt a slight vibration. Others continued their conversations without concern. However, below the waterline, a catastrophe had begun. The iceberg damaged multiple compartments. Cold Atlantic water poured into the ship. Engineers quickly assessed the situation. Their conclusion was devastating. The Titanic would sink. Captain Edward Smith received the report. For a brief moment, one of the most advanced ships ever built seemed helpless before nature. Orders were issued. Lifeboats were prepared. Wireless operators began sending distress signals into the darkness. Nearby ships received the messages. One vessel, the RMS Carpathia, immediately altered course and raced toward the disaster. But it was hours away. On the Titanic, confusion spread. Many passengers initially refused to enter lifeboats. The ship still appeared safe. Music continued playing. Crew members attempted to maintain order. Women and children were given priority. Some families became separated. Others chose to remain together despite the danger. As time passed, the bow of the ship sank lower into the freezing ocean. Reality became impossible to ignore. People rushed across tilted decks. Fear replaced disbelief. Lifeboats descended into the darkness below. Yet there were not enough seats for everyone aboard. This fact would become one of the disaster's most controversial lessons. The freezing Atlantic Ocean offered little chance of survival. Water temperatures hovered near 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyone entering the ocean faced extreme danger within minutes. As the ship continued sinking, acts of extraordinary courage emerged. Crew members remained at their posts. Engineers continued working to keep electrical systems functioning. Musicians reportedly continued performing to calm frightened passengers. Individuals sacrificed opportunities for survival to help strangers. Shortly after 2 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the Titanic reached its final moments. The ship's structure endured unimaginable stress. Then came the end. The great vessel disappeared beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Hundreds survived in lifeboats. More than 1,500 people lost their lives. Hours later, the Carpathia arrived and rescued survivors from the freezing darkness. News of the disaster shocked the world. Newspapers across America printed enormous headlines. Questions followed. How could such a modern ship sink? Why were there insufficient lifeboats? Could the tragedy have been prevented? Investigations in both the United States and Britain examined every detail. Their findings transformed maritime safety forever. New regulations required sufficient lifeboats for all passengers. Continuous radio monitoring became standard. International cooperation improved iceberg tracking and ocean safety procedures. The tragedy of the Titanic became more than a disaster. It became a lesson. A reminder that technological progress, no matter how impressive, cannot eliminate risk. More than a century later, the story continues to fascinate historians, researchers, filmmakers, and ordinary people around the world. The Titanic rests nearly 12,500 feet beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Silent. Dark. Preserved by the cold depths. Yet its story remains alive. Because history is not only about ships, buildings, or inventions. History is about people. Their dreams. Their choices. Their courage. And the moments that changed the world forever.